Hello again, fellow vegetable nerds. Welcome back. Today's episode's a little different. No vegetables were harmed in the making of this video, but we are going to get squiffy on some medieval hooch. So how about that?
Hey, turn up the caramello and shizzle on the shizney. It's time for me to what? Let me introduce myself. I'm Gina Burrito. My pants are made of leather. I find it hard to
Okay, I'm a little bit behind in my recipes, which I'm realizing as I'm saying this, I don't actually have to tell you that. I can release these in any order, so I could just be like, look at me on top of things, and you would believe me, because you're kind like that. But no, let's just be honest, I'm a little behind. Today's recipe is from day one, but I ran out of wine somehow, and so I haven't been able to get more until today. And today is actually, in reality, day 3. So there's a whole bunch of stuff I'm supposed to be making today, which I haven't made yet. And there's stuff from yesterday that I also haven't made yet. I'm gonna let the ingredients in my fridge determine what gets made in what order, actually, because I've got some stuff that needs to be cooked a little bit more quickly than other things. But today, or at least right now, in this video, we're gonna make some booze. Today is November 4th. If you are following United States politics at all, you know that it's a bit of a stressful day. There is an election going on, and despite what some people seem to think, it is not over yet, and nobody knows what's happening. I, like most of the people I know, didn't get a lot of sleep last night. I, like most of the people I know, have been doing a little bit of day drinking to get through this. With that in mind, let's get drunk. Actually, it's gonna be a week before I can drink this. Much like the election results. We're just gonna have to wait. Hopefully, good things come to those who wait. We will see. So today's recipe is for a spiced wine called Hippocras. Now, I can't give you instructions on how to make it. You're just gonna watch me bumble through it, and I won't be able to tell you what's in there. But you can kind of guess at some of the spices that are gonna be in there, especially since we went through some of the ingredients that I bought, but there's also some stuff that we didn't go through, and there's some really unexpected things in there, and I'm very curious about how this is gonna come out. If you do want more specific information on making Hippocras, if you want a recipe that you can follow along with, not only are there some recipes online, this comes straight from a 14th century text called the Form of Curie, which you can buy. It's gonna be difficult. Like I said, these medieval recipes just on their own are hard to follow. But if you want a really good resource for that, I highly recommend Tasting History with Max Miller. He does great historical recipes, he gives a lot of great information, and he's just a really nice person and a joy to watch. So today, as with every recipe I'm coming across, I'm finding I have some decisions to make. Some of it's just going to be about adapting to what ingredients I was able to get and what I wasn't able to get. And some of it is about adapting it to what I prefer to eat and don't prefer to eat. So for instance, this spiced wine is also a sweet wine. So there's sugar in here, which I'm not gonna have. I've mentioned this before, I am a diabetic, which sucks real bad. But I can still have stuff because we live in a modern era where we have approximations of things. I have a couple of different options for that. I've got some allulose, which I think is going to be a lot more similar in texture and just most general properties to sugar, but I'm still getting used to using it, and I'm not 100% sold on the flavor just yet. I also have sweet and low. I mean, I don't know. I know that there was some controversy a while back, but it was a long time ago, and as far as I know, there's nothing conclusive saying that you shouldn't have it, and it is so far my preferred sweetener. I don't have to use very much of it. I like the flavor of it. I know some people seem to think it has an aftertaste, but for me, this is my favorite. So I was having a hard time deciding which one to use. I think I'm gonna use both. Not together. I think I'm just gonna make a double batch because I have 2 bottles of wine. I'm looking through all of my recipes for the rest of the week, and none of them, unless I overlooked something, none of them use the red wine. So I think I'm just gonna make 2 batches, and I'm gonna use one with the allulose and one with the sweet and low, and we're gonna see how it goes. The other thing that I had to figure out was whether to use spices whole or to use spices ground. I think in general I want the whole spices. There were some things I just could not get. I couldn't get my hands on fresh galangal, for instance, but I do have ground galangal, just I already had it. So I'm gonna use that, but I don't want to use too many ground spices because they did warn me, if you use too many ground spices, it does get a bit gloopy and harder to strain and a little bit more difficult to work with. So I'm going to try as much as possible to have whole spices. The other thing I ran into trouble with was the ginger. I have fresh ginger, which I assumed I would be using, and then I looked at the measurements, and I don't know how to measure fresh ginger in that way. So it gives it to you in grams. I don't have a way to measure grams. It gives it to you in ounces. I don't have a scale, so that's only so helpful. And then it gives it to you in teaspoons. I mean, how many teaspoons is that? And then I looked at the package, and the package it came in said it was a certain number of ounces and a certain number of grams, you know, and the number of ounces and grams that are specified in the recipe are very small compared to how much was in the package. But then when you look at the number of teaspoons of ground, it seems like quite a lot. I'm just gonna go with the thing I have an exact measurement for. If they say so many teaspoons of ground, just gonna do that. There's a part of me that is tempted to say, look, you're doing 2 different batches. Why don't you do whole in one and ground in the other? I'm just gonna save this for the other recipe that I have that's gonna require fresh ginger, and I'm just gonna play it safe. So I'm gonna start assembling my stuff. First things first, I'm gonna mix my spices together. I love my mortar and pestle. I love this thing. I feel very cool using this. I was so proud of myself because I had everything laid out before I started the video, but I forgot to lay out my measuring spoons. I know it's day 3. Yes, the light is still out. Yes, my kitchen is still full of stand lights and a tripod. It is what it is. So I gotta find my measuring spoon while kind of shimmying around all of the things. I found one. Aha! Is this the right one even? Oh, come on. I'm sure that's fine. I think this is the one. Let us begin the assembling. Another thing I'm running into. It's given measurements, but I don't know if these measurements are for whole or ground spices. So I'm pretty sure that, for instance, a teaspoon of ground cardamom and a teaspoon of whole cardamom is going to be a pretty different amount of cardamom. Nope, definitely doesn't specify. Okay. I don't know if this is something that's going to become useful later. The recipe, the shopping list specifically called for whole nutmeg, which I bought, which is fine. I'm happy to have it. But now I have to have a quantity of nutmeg, which I assume means a quantity of ground nutmeg, because, like, how do you measure, I don't know, a tablespoon of a giant, of a ball? I mean, I think I'm just gonna go with what I have that's ground, because I have a nutmeg grinder somewhere randomly. It wasn't on the shopping list, so I'm lucky I have one. I'm just gonna use the ground stuff. So this is a really unusual collection of smells. It smells very Christmassy. Like, it smells like when you go into a candle shop in winter. I think that's gonna be nice. It's even the weird stuff that's in there. I got to use one of my little baby plants, and because it doesn't use very much, and this particular one was doing okay, so I was able to take just a little tiny bit off of him. It's this guy right here. I'm very intrigued by this. So this is our first batch of spices. I could swear I used to have a better wine opener, but I don't drink a lot of wine, so I lost it. I just randomly have this, so let's see what we can do. Come on, muscles. You can do it. I did the other one. Oh man, I'm turning red. I think part of it is that I'm really nervous that I'm gonna pull too hard and then, like, do something very silly. Oh my god. Oh. I have to go get help. Yay! There's no shame in asking for help. So you add a little bit of the wine to the spices to make a paste. A weird smelling paste. It just smells so weird. This is gonna be really good though, because I can tell that when there's something sweet added to this, and I was worried about making it too sweet, but I think that combined with some of the very pungent smells in here, I think it's gonna be really lovely. This is gonna be so good. First one I'm gonna do with the sweet and low. The day I knew would always come has arrived. I have to introduce you to my cooking pot. He ain't perfect. I call him Van Gogh, because one of his handles, Van went. Yeah, it is inconvenient, but we make do. I forgot how many packets I put in there now because I distracted myself. Oh man, okay. All my packets are in. I love the noise that it makes when you're pouring wine and it just does a glug glug glug. We're just gonna heat that up until our sweetener dissolves. Because it's not real sugar, I don't think it's gonna have to be heated that long. I mean, it's gonna dissolve right away. I have to keep going back and forth to my recipe. It's hard sometimes to keep track of what I'm doing. I think while that's happening, maybe I can start the other one. Don't shame your ancestors. I'm gonna punch myself in the face if I keep doing this. I can't figure out how to put myself so that I can get a good grip on this and pull, but like, anyone else warm? I did it. I think now would be a good time to just remind you that the purpose of this show is not instructional. And it was never meant to be. If you're looking for expert instruction, that is out there. There is lots of that, and there's lots of people doing things way better than me. So what are you here for, if not instruction? I mean, I guess that's a question for you. This concerns me. I'm pretty sure it's a 1-to-1, but the little serving guy is really small. Then again, you wouldn't put, yeah, this is like how much you would put in like a coffee or something, so. Okay, so I think I have heated my first batch of wine about as much as I want to, and I've got my paste of stuff to go in. We'll see how this goes. So this has to come off the heat. Oh! It smells good, but it is also a lot to get a face full of when you weren't expecting it. So this has to sit and just kind of steep. Okay. You find a place to put this. So the second pot that's on the back burner, which you can't see, that one's got the allulose in it, which is much, much, much more similar to regular sugar. So that one I think is gonna have to be heated a little bit longer, especially since also I put it on after the first one. I can still tell that the allulose is a bit granular, so that's gonna take another couple of minutes. But also, let me make a note of what time it is so I know how long to let this sit. And hopefully I can juggle these two together. I tell you what, they made a video and I watched the video of them making it and it took them like 5 minutes and it looked very, very easy. And it's not difficult and somebody else will have a very easy time with this. Everybody else seems to be having a very easy time with everything, and even the things where I'm kind of stumbling through it. This is just my process. It's just gonna take a little bit longer because I'm gonna have to keep checking my recipe every 5 minutes because I forgot what I was doing. And it just, I mean, it's just how I do. But it's gonna come out in the end, one way or another. And you know, if it doesn't turn out perfect, we're still gonna get drunk and then we won't even you know? Okay, it's time to do the thing. The first one has been steeping for a quantity of minutes, and now it's time to strain it out into a container. Now at this point, I think it's worth it to point out that sometimes things don't occur to you until maybe a little late in the game. And one of those things that occurred to me was strain it with what into what? I don't have a wine decanter. I certainly don't have 2 wine decanters. So I had to improvise. Also, I was like, okay, what do I strain it with? I don't have the name Hippocras, the name of this spiced wine actually comes from the name of a conical sleeve that they would use to strain it. And when I was reading that, I went, oh, I have one of these, and it's even conical. Aha. What I don't have is filters that fit it. I do have this kind of filter. What I'm concerned with is that it might break through this filter. I'm gonna try it out and see what happens. The worst thing that happens is that it breaks through the filter. I just dump it back into the thing and we try again with 2 layers or 3. And I'm probably gonna strain this a few times, especially since there's some ground spices in here. It's probably not all gonna get filtered properly the first time, but we're just gonna see how this goes. So my first improvised container, like I said, I ain't fancy. I don't have a wine decanter, but I do have a water bottle with a sticker on it of a fat flying cat that I got at Comic-Con. I love this sticker so much. And this is warm enough that I can touch it, which is handy. Because when it's really hot, I tell you what, this thing's a real pain in the butt. Why don't I get a new pan? Because it still works. It still holds things and heats things, so I have a hard time imagining getting rid of it. Also, I don't know anything about pots. I don't know how to pick a good pot. I don't want to spend a bunch of money on a new pot, but I also don't want to get like a junky, cheap pot. So if it ain't broke too much, etc. Yeah. Seems to be holding up. The other one I think is going to be a little bit gloopier because I didn't have enough of my little baby plant. I don't want to take too much from him. So I just took some of the stuff that was starting to grow a little bit taller, and maybe that will encourage him to grow a little bushier. So I just took a little bit from him for the first one, but for the second one, I used a ground version of this. So that's more ground stuff, so a lot more powder to make it a little bit gloopier. And I can already tell it's just a little different. The flavor is a little different. The texture seems a little bit different. So, but that's the whole point of having 2 for comparison. Unfortunately, now I have 2 variables, so it won't be as easy to tell which one made a big difference. But then again, we're testing, the 2 variables are 2 completely different things. If one is incredibly, just much sweeter than the other, we know which variable affected that. This may take a while. So it was going way too slow, and we had a bit of a bottleneck at the bottom of this, which is why I actually don't use this for coffee. I do have a pour over thing that I really like for coffee. I got this because I thought it would be nice to have a fancier one, but I found that I really just don't like the cone style because you do get sort of a bottleneck there and it takes forever to brew your coffee. And it turns out that my cheap plastic junky one that I got from the grocery store in Montana worked a lot better. So I use that every day. But I think this is going to be fine. But for a first pass through where there was a lot of big chunks, it wasn't cutting it. So what I'm doing now is, if you can sort of see, it's not a perfect system. So I poured it, this was inside a funnel, which was inside this. So it didn't go everywhere. I'm not saying it didn't go everywhere. I'm just saying it didn't go as everywhere as it would have otherwise gone. This is just the last little remnants that I'm hoping to kind of squeeze out of it. And this is what's gone into my other container. This was a glass milk jug that I just hung on to because I thought it was a cool bottle, and nobody is taking jugs back right now because of COVID. So nobody's taking back any recyclable stuff or, reusable bottles. And I was like, I'm not gonna throw it out. So say what you will about hoarding. When I need something, I have it. No regrets. This guy here, I did the same thing with. And what we're left with is just kind of some sludge here. So I got most of the big parts out. So now I can go through with the coffee strainer and see if that makes it a little bit easier, because now we're filtering out finer particles. It wasn't so much a matter of impatience as just not wanting to oversteep the remnants of this batch, because it was taking so long for this that I couldn't put the rest in, but also the other batch that's just sitting there. I didn't want the flavors to get too strong because these are quite strong flavors. I needed to add a little expediency to this process. So far, so good. Okay, so we're gonna do a second straining. I had to wash out the pot, put it back into the pot so that I had something to hold it so I could put it back into the bottle. And when I emptied out the first decanter, there was a ton of sediment in there. So it's definitely a good thing that we're doing a second pass through. I rinsed that out. We should be good to go. Hopefully this goes a little bit faster. And this is kind of reminding me, I had a wine made by a local winery. Oh, I can't remember what they're called now. We used to really like them. They have a lot of nice dessert wines. And they had a holiday wine called Santa's Elixir. And now I'm wondering if that was their version of Hippocras, and whether they were using a historical recipe, or if it just had a few Christmassy things in it. I certainly don't think that they use this recipe, because there's some stuff in there I just don't think they're using. There's some real specialty stuff in here. But it's along the same lines, and it was nice. As predicted, this is taking much longer than it took in the video. This will just make it taste all the better when I finally get to drink it, because I'll know how much time I put into this. So what I found is I have another tea strainer. This has a very fine mesh, and I think I might still put a paper filter into it. No, let's just do a pass through without the paper filter and see what happens, because I can always filter it again. Let's just see what happens. So I'm going to use the other one, and I'm going to go into a pot with this. Ooh, look at all that sludge in the bottom. Most of it went straight through really fast. And there's some that's taken a little bit longer, and I think that's our sediment there. So I'm just gonna do this about 1 million more times. To the best of my ability, I have done the thing. I have 2 fancy decanters of fancy wine. I can't drink them yet. I can smell them, they smell really nice. They're supposed to sit overnight before I can try them out. So that's something to look forward to. I will check back in. I will let you know how they went and what they taste like and which sweetener ended up tasting better. Thank you for hanging out and watching me make a mess of my kitchen and pour wine all over my cutting board and my stove and myself. You don't have to be good at things to do things. If you take any lesson from this, another lesson, these things kind of suck. The other ones are better. The pour over is great, but the cone shaped ones, I'm just gonna give this away to somebody that I might not like very much. I'm glad I did this. I'm glad I tried it. I'm glad that we could do this together. Learn from my mistakes, and then if you decide to do something similar, you'll do it better than I did. And next time I do it, I'll do it better than I did. It didn't go great, but I can't say it went badly. And I'm very excited. It smells great. It's gonna be great. We're gonna be fine. Thank you for putting up with my ridiculousness. I will see you next time. Please continue to tune in, and please like and subscribe if you would like to do that. And please share it with your friends if you'd like to do that as well. And I will see you next time. Bye.
Hey, turn up the caramello and shizzle on the shizney. It's time for me to what? Let me introduce myself. I'm Gino Burrito. My pants are made of leather. I find a